Hello and welcome to part 2 of section 1. In this part, we will explain how an organization can understand their delta and the nature and effect of a threat gap. The delta. There has been increased pace of change. Several new technologies have come up. There has been disruption threats and also possibilities of markets becoming inefficient from time to time. All of these can lead to the creation of a gap between where an organization currently is and where it could be or where it wants to be or needs to be. This gap is in terms of its capability, market position, and offering. In AgileSHIFT, this gap, also the threat gap, is called the delta. The delta, therefore, is a key concept in AgileSHIFT. It is the difference between the current performance level and the target state. If you look at this picture here, we've got the time on the x-axis and the capability of performance on the y-axis. At the current state of capability and performance, and in the future, there is a target state. So the difference between the two is known as the delta. And it is this gap that disruptors seek to exploit. How do we understand the delta, or how do organizations understand their delta? They can do this by considering the following. They need to understand where the organization currently is and where it wants to be or could possibly be. Also, they need to be aware of the competition, where the competition is already or moving towards. What are its customer expectations? How can the organization transform from its current position? And also, how can it align its strategic goals with a future desired state? Which means, does it need to change its strategy? If so, how? Therefore, the delta is the difference between the target state and the current performance level. This is an abstract gap. There is no numerical measure or calculation that will yield a precise answer, but it needs to be understood. But it is this gap which is important because disruptors will seek to exploit this gap. If a disruptor becomes aware of the gap of other organizations, meaning the delta of other organizations, they can move fast forward and fill the gap and become the number one in the market. Which means that the larger the delta, the more exposed the organization will be to disruption from innovative new ideas, products, and services from other organizations. Many organizations in long-standing markets may not even be aware that there is a delta. When organizations want to survive and compete, it is important that they recognize that there is a gap and understanding the nature of the gap and the size or scale of the gap, and also taking action to reduce the gap or to narrow the gap. For example, an organization may not be adaptable to changing external environmental influences, and that could create a delta in which they may be delivering their products and services much later to the market. And by doing that, their competitors might be able to do it much faster. Therefore, the organization might lose the market to its competitors. Therefore, it is important that the organization realizes that they are unable to deliver faster, and that is the gap, and understand how faster they need to deliver and bring things in place, for example, agility. By doing this, they can reduce the gap. Another important thing is that this delta doesn't remain static. Even when an organization moves forward to close the gap is again created in the future. Let's take a look at this picture here. The current position of the organization is shown in the blue color, and the green is the delta to which the organization is exposed. Let's say this gap is closed. After the change, meaning when the organization takes action to reduce the gap, the light blue colored is the closing of the gap. However, there is still a narrow delta here. Now, the situation changes in the environment of the organization, internal and external, more likely external, by which the gap is again created. So we see here the green bar is further extended, which means the context adapts or changes and the delta grows again, which means organization must change continuously to continuously close the newer deltas which are coming up. We need to keep changing to manage the delta, which means the delta is not static. So the desired state or possible performance level will constantly move as the wider context changes and evolves, meaning the situation changes. And as this delta grows, the organization must continue to focus on understanding that delta and taking action to narrow it if it wishes to survive. For example, if an organization realizes that the delta is the inability to be agile, they might become agile and close that gap. But again, within a year or two, they might find that they have a delta with respect to proper use of technology. And therefore, they will have to close that delta as well. And after they do that, once again in the future, they might find that they have a new delta.